You're about to watch a fully up-to-date Axe PvP guide separated into 3 chapters with every important technique being explained by top Axe players. Firstly, it's important to note that Axe playstyles can vary a ton, so while some players might play more aggressively and focus on melee, others might play very defensively while focusing on range trades, which means you don't need to master every technique shown in the video. It's best to firstly see what you're good at and then build your playstyle based on that. Anyways, let's get into the first chapter, where I will be explaining the most important aggressive technique, stunning. In Axe, it's crucial to know how to apply pressure to your opponent, and especially when they play rather defensively, a simple shield break won't help. The common misconception is that you have to perform a double click to stun your opponent, which basically just means disabling their shield while also knocking them back. This can also be done by simply clicking twice as fast as possible. While you shouldn't only use this technique, it can still be extremely useful, and with correct spacing and movement it can easily help you get a huge advantage. The only downside to stuns is that there's a pretty easy counter that I'll be explaining later on, which makes them way less consistent. So in the following, a high tier 2 Axe player will be explaining a more advanced strategy to break players' shields, which can also be quite a lot more consistent.
Hey, I'm Mistled, and I'll be showing you guys momentum breaks. Momentum breaks are essentially a win-draw situation, where either you trade damage or get a completely winning advantage. As you can see, I jump for the momentum. Then, right after the peak of the jump, I disable their shield, sort of like an early crit. It's really recommended you guys let go of W when you hit. This is because in case they unshield, you get a free crit instead of a normal hit. However, make sure to retap W almost instantly so you retain as much momentum as possible. After that, I time my jump where they'll auto hit. Although it looks daunting, it's very easy with repetitive timing. Momentum breaks are super great in burst encounters when you're up or even in HP, and when they're one hit and you're like above 2 hearts.
So while aggressive techniques can be very effective, there is a few counters that people use, with the most common one being auto-hitting. If done correctly, auto-hitting basically makes it possible for you to get a free hit anytime your opponent disables your shield from less than exactly 3 blocks away. If you spam left click while your shield is up and aim at your opponent, you will instantly hit them once it gets disabled. If your opponent has good stuns, it's usually helpful to try to stay in close enough range to auto hit them while performing a technique called shield dancing, where you essentially jump around while staying in range and unshielding from time to time to try to bait hits. If you find yourself in a good enough position, you can then perform a backstab, which will be explained by a tier 2 player in the following.
In this section we will be talking about backstabs. To do a regular backstab, you need to jump behind your opponent, turn around midair, and crit them as you're falling down. This is the most common backstab in XPP, but it is also pretty easy to block and to predict, since it's kind of slow compared to the backstabs we're going to talk about next. The Swayshi. Swayshis are a faster and less predictable version of a backstab with no jump. However, it yields a smaller reward, as you deal 1 heart of damage with an axe green hit instead of 2. To perform this technique, you need to get close to the opponent in a shield engagement, then let go of your shield, walk through the player model with a sprint, turn around and hit them, and finally the third, more advanced option, the momentum backstab or the uppercut backstab. This is the fastest and, if done correctly, almost unblockable version of a backstab. To perform this technique, you need to first gain momentum either with spin jumping or some sort of shield dancing. Then with this momentum you need to jump, and as you are going upwards through the player model, you need to quickly turn around 180 degrees and hit your opponent before you will fall down. While this is the fastest way to execute a backstab, it is important to remember that each of the mentioned techniques are useful, but in different situations.
With Lawmists having explained the basics of backstabs, you now know all of the important melee strategies. Before getting to our last chapter though, it's important to note that you should try to be as unpredictable as possible. For example, it's not worth going for a backstab every time you're shield dancing. Sometimes stunning or simply waiting for your opponent to make a move can be way more effective. While both aggressive and defensive techniques can help a lot with getting advantages in rounds, it's pretty much impossible to get good at Axe without using arrows or at least knowing the basics about range trades. Most Axe runs start with a melee trade, after which you will have to utilize your arrows to try to either get or keep an advantage. After shooting your pre-charged crossbow, you should try to dodge and bait their shots while recharging and getting damage on them either by bowing while they're charging or consistently recharging crossbows to get extra damage. It's extremely important to try to randomize your movement during range trades to not get predicted. If you think you have better chances in melee than in range against a player, you can also try avoiding range trades and try to stay close to them to force melee. If you believe a player is under 2 hearts and you have a charged crossbow, you can offhand it and left and right click at the same time while they're shielding. This will basically kill them no matter what, and it's a consistent strategy most top players use when their opponent is low. The best way to practice is to find better players than you on practice servers and fight them while trying to figure out a playstyle you can beat them with. Some servers I highly recommend for practicing are turtle.net, pvphq.com and mcpvp.club. If you want to see more guides like this, make sure to let me know in the comments and subscribe. Thank you for watching.